we have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
Got to have the ability to get their product to market.
As long as you're performing, we want to be behind you pushing.
Welcome into another edition of the Extra Mile Podcast presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm MDOT Digital Media Manager Paul Caldwell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Will Kraft. He handles government and constituent affairs at MDOT. Today, we're on the road again. We are at the Mississippi Association of Supervisors Fall Workshop in Natchez, and we are on location to talk to Northern District Transportation Commissioner John Caldwell. Commissioner Caldwell, we really appreciate you making time for us.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So just a little bit of information about Commissioner Caldwell. He was elected consecutive terms as a DeSoto County Supervisor and served from 1996 to 2003. And he also has worked as a transportation director in school district. Very cool stuff. Was elected Northern District Transportation Commissioner. So can you dive a little bit more into your career? What made you kind of want to get into public service and led you to run for Northern District Transportation Commissioner?
Well, it's just a matter of being involved. It's not a matter of kind of setting your sights on anything that's elected. But, you know, when you get involved and you care about the community and you start trying to make a difference, sometimes those doors open up, and that's kind of where I found myself when I ran for county supervisor and again running for commissioner.
Excellent.
I know a lot of those things, you know, your history and the work that you've done throughout the past, being supervisor, especially being involved with the transportation aspects of the school districts. A lot of those contributed to the qualities you have now as being the commissioner. How about your military service? Sure that went a long way in kind of preparing you or shaping you to be who you are.
Well, the military side is never going to leave me, and the Marine Corps likes to say, once a Marine, always a Marine, and I certainly feel that internally, not so much, you know, as my body gets older, it's not so much felt externally, but you do feel that connection, and that military service is something we're very proud of. It's just a life of service has kind of been where I've focused my efforts, and the Marine Corps was very good to me.
We got the big holiday coming up here. Veterans Day always so important to so many folks. I'm sure that has a special meaning for you. Kind of speak to that.
Oh, absolutely. The Veterans Day, different from Memorial Day,
right.
Honors all veterans, and you know we have a friendly rivalry between the services, and of course we harass the Air Force or the Coast Guard or some of the Army or Navy. So that friendly rivalry, it kind of culminates in a November 11th celebration, and we all get to kind of come together and recognize the fact that there's people that have gone before us that are serving today, and some are serving in peacetime, some in wartime, some are on the water, some are in an office stuck in the Pentagon, and those people deserve the recognition. It's a high calling, and I really admire the ones that are taking that challenge, especially today.
Mayor Starkville, we had an interview a couple weeks ago. She had a notion that she thought that, you know, everybody should serve at least, you know, 1 or 2 years there. Everybody in the country. So I mean, hey, you know, it might not be a bad idea.
No, I'm 100% against everybody serving.
Maybe not everybody.
You know, there is a good argument to be made.
Sure.
Because there's a disconnect between the military service and the civilian world, and it's growing wider as fewer people serve. In percentage terms, for sure. But when you go through Marine Corps boot camp and you're looking around and you're realizing everybody doesn't need to be here, for sure. And you know, I've got friends and family, from brothers and sisters to children to you know, that haven't served.
Sure.
And you know, there's people who their service is in a different realm. And so there's nothing wrong with that. So trying to drag everybody into the military service, I just don't think that's a good solution. But, you know, there's a good argument to be made for it, because we are getting a little disconnected from our own society. So we need that connection.
And I myself, obviously, you know, I do not have any military service, so tons of heaps of admiration for you and the other folks that have gone before us, and you know, a lot of the freedoms that we enjoy today. I want to make sure that's appreciated. Veterans Day. So this will come out right around that time. So just remember, thank a veteran for their service. Appreciate everything that you and all those that have served have done.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's get into MDOT a little bit. So obviously, I know there's a lot going on in the Northern District. Is there any projects or kind of initiatives that you want to highlight?
You know, I always hesitate to get into specific projects. One, because once you mention one highway, somebody's raising their hand for another highway.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I see that down here at the supervisors convention. Everybody's got their own concerns, and they're all legitimate concerns. So, you know, prioritizing has got to be done, and so we do pick the ones that have the greatest challenges, and some of those may have a longer timeline to get those challenges addressed. But the supervisors, the mayors, the aldermen, state representatives, everybody's got kind of their pet projects that they're concerned with in their district. But, you know, the people have their pet projects in front of their house.
Right.
You know, it's the highway in front of my house that takes me to my church or takes me to my school or takes me to work. That's the one they're concerned about.
Sure.
And, you know, their concern is of no less importance than mine. So I try to stay away from the list, but I am glad to see some work getting done. We've had some good things happen, from the state legislature helping us to federal government sending some more money down, and good people doing good work to get the projects out. So we are seeing a lot of orange barrels, you know, out there, and the roads getting worked on. But we're still, as we work and we get kind of happy with what we're doing, if you quantify it, we're still falling behind. Right. So we have a lot of challenges ahead, and so I don't want to get too happy with the first 3 years.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about some of those challenges and kind of how you're working to attack them?
Well, the biggest challenge is long-term funding for the department.
Right.
You know, our challenge is not even good people. We've got good people. We've got good facilities. We can buy good equipment. We have challenges to actually fund our efforts, and those challenges are not going away anytime soon. So we're trying to take a short-term look at what we can do in the near term, but also what we're trying to do long-term to find a perpetual source of funding, as fuel receipts tend to be dropping. With advent of electric vehicles, that's going to continue to happen, and so we have to figure out how are we going to fund road repairs, how are we going to fund road improvements, how are we going to face the next generation of roads, and what they're going to require, because there's always an improvement, whether it's, you know, people used to be happy when the dirt road got gravel, then the gravel got paved and everybody was happy, and then once it got paved they wanted better stripes, and then they want reflectors, and then you know, they need the lanes to be a little wider, then the 2 lanes needs to be 4 lanes, and so those kind of things continue, and we have to look at the future. What is going to be our challenge in the future, and what's going to be the road network, the rail, the intermodal side of what we do. How are we going to address that? And we can't address it with current funding, and there is no perpetual funding source right now to help us address the future. So that's my focus right now.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And certainly not the answer to that perpetual funding source moving forward, but a feather in the cap, if you will, for us here recently. The lottery, though, has seen a lot of lottery projects in the Northern District.
The lottery projects have been priceless. You know, we prioritized the roads that we could get the most out of. So the ones that we could get federal funds for, and we can do an 80-20 split. It was more bang for the buck.
Yeah.
But what was happening is that some of the 2-lane highways that didn't qualify for federal funds were just getting ignored. So we've had to address that, and the lottery funds has helped us do it. Now, the lottery funds, while very appreciative of $80 million a year, it's $80 million a year flat. Yeah. So it doesn't cover inflation. It doesn't cover any kind of improvements or any kind of increase. So one of the big criticisms of the 87 road plan was it didn't address inflation. It didn't have an incremental increase. And so the lottery funds did the same thing.
Right.
You know, so they came in, they capped it at $80 million, and we're getting a full $80 million, but we're getting less done every year with that same $80 million. So we are seeing some things happen, and the lottery funds was a big player in getting some things moving the last couple of years. The new money that the state allocated this year was I don't know what we'd be doing without it. I mean, it's just, they kept us from being broke. And so that's important, and that's real, but it's one-time money.
That's right.
And so they can kind of lean and kind of tell us maybe we're going to get it again this coming year,
Right.
and maybe we can count on it, maybe we can't. Is it going to be 100%? Is it going to be 90% of what they gave us? Is it going to be 110% of what they gave us? We'll never know if they don't create a perpetual funding source. But at least they're recognizing the fact that we are short. We need the help from another source of revenue besides the fuel tax.
You just alluded to kind of my next question, the inflation. I mean, it's really the effect on us and the agency. I'm sure it's, far wide, other folks, but really taking an impact on our construction.
Inflation is hard to explain to folks because not only are we facing inflation with the jobs we're bidding out currently, we have factors built into our bids that allow us to get lower bids at times, but they have fuel adjustment charges that they can add to it. So even bids that we approved over a year ago, if that project's not done, we're still spending, those costs actually go up in the middle of the job. So we have a lot of inflationary pressures that are going to change our way of thinking.
It's been crazy. I mean, just to see the prices skyrocket the way they have this year.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you breaking down all the funding and some of the challenges and things like that. So one of the cool things I've noticed, I keep up with you on Facebook, and I know you're out and about. You're, riding the highways, the interstates, and looking at projects and things. So kind of talk about the importance of getting out there and seeing things and talking to constituents.
Well, of course, the state's divided into 3 districts, and mine is 33 counties and 11,000 miles. So there's really no way for me to do it any other way. I mean, I have to cover some ground. I have to get out. I have to see the roads. I have to see the people that ride those roads. It's almost like a nonstop campaign. I mean, you're stopping at the diners and at the coffee shops, and you're hearing from them, and they're telling you things that you might not hear otherwise. So it's a valuable process. It's a necessary process for me. So I enjoy it. I mean, that's a big part of my decision to even run and participate in this position is, trying to help those people and listen to those people and trying to make a difference. That's kind of what it's all about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Branching off a little bit here, kind of highlight a fun fact about you, something maybe not everybody knows. We got an author in the house today. Tell us a little about your book.
Well, the book was a little labor of love. It's a memoir of military service.
Right.
My father was a Marine in World War II in Iwo Jima and Saipan.
Oh, wow.
And that's he kept a lot of his stories to himself, and so we didn't hear a lot of it, and he's passed away since. And it kind of woke me up to the fact that, I don't really tell a lot of stories either. So I started to put them together and put them on paper, and it kind of grew and grew. And then my world is in the military, bounces from civilian to the military reserve to active duty, being activated for Desert Storm, activated for Iraqi freedom a couple of times. And so those kind of things just keep bouncing me back. And then I go back to the civilian world, to the school bus world, to the political world, back to the Marine Corps world. So those kind of things are unique to reserve. And so I started kind of writing it as something that might help a reservist or a reservist family or a military family that's not understanding what their husband, son, brother might be going through. And so it just grew. And then the hardest part was just how do you stop the timeline? Where do you end it? I'm a big proponent of timelines, whether it's in a book or my dad taught me if I'm not 15 minutes early, I'm late. So, and that's kind of stuck with me my entire life. And then in the Marines, I was in artillery, and time on target meant time on target. You didn't miss your timelines. And the world came to an end if you missed a timeline because we made sure everybody knew it. And so, and then I got in the school bus world, and timelines were important.
Sure.
I mean, you can't just leave the kids sitting on the side of the road wondering if the bus is going to get there. So timelines have always been important. So that's something that I press when I'm discussing with the staff and discussing with other commissioners. Sure. And I'm like, the timelines are killing me. They take too long, and it's a process it's burdensome, and we just have to fight through it.
Well, and that's an exact situation kind of that, the public is not necessarily always privy to the rhymes and reasons for a project's duration or extension even, but they always see that it's still going on, what's happening, right? I think, being engaged and that focus on the timelines kind of go hand in hand with just that public perception of that we're staying on top of things and moving projects forward.
It does. People need to see something happening.
Right.
And when all of it's behind the scenes, it gets really
Sure.
difficult. Some of it being behind the scenes is okay, but we need to see something happening
Yeah.
on the ground, and that's something that you deal with every day. And when I travel those roads and do those visits and get around, they want to, you can only tell them so many times it's in the hands of the engineers.
Right.
I mean, eventually they want to see it in the hand of the contractors.
Yeah.
And they want to see people riding on better roads.
Dirt being moved, yeah.
Absolutely.
A little bit off topic here, but I think we got a special session going on in Jackson today. Any info for us on the project that's being announced?
No inside scoop on that. Infrastructure is an important part of economic development.
No
and
doubt.
We definitely are a big fan of trying to help economic development in Mississippi, and where we can be a player and be a teammate to that effort. We're certainly interested and we're rooting them on, but I'm just not familiar with that project.
I think we're all kind of sitting tuned to see what the announcements are today, yeah.
Oh yeah. So we got one more question for you, but before that, I want to ask any other message that you kind of want to get out to the traveling public in the Northern District about what's going on with transportation.
That's interesting. You start talking about messages to the public, and then there's just so many variables.
Sure.
I get frustrated. We spend a lot of money telling people don't hit a deer when it crosses the road, and that kind of frustrates me sometimes. I'm thinking, can we not get a better message out than don't hit that deer?
I wasn't trying.
But at the same time, we do have a safety focus in what we do, and we do want to make sure that our roads are safe. And that's a lot of what the complaints are. When people say, hey, this intersection is dangerous, this road is too dark, or these stripes are not done, these reflectors aren't done, these shoulders are washed out. They're talking about safety as well.
Sure.
And so we need to be able to respond. And when we're short-funded, for one, it's hard, and we're short-handed is another one. North Mississippi is a little unique. Two counties in particular, DeSoto and Marshall, are very short-handed. But when you're in Marshall County and you can get $17 an hour to push a two-wheeler in a warehouse, an air-conditioned warehouse, not diminishing the value of pushing a two-wheeler in an air-conditioned warehouse, but I don't pay that much. Commission doesn't pay that much for our new workers. So we can't get anybody for $11 an hour when our neighbors are paying $17. So counties like DeSoto and Marshall, where the pay is so high, we're having a real trouble. And so what happens is Benton County is taking people out of their county to help Marshall County. Tate County's taking people out of their county to help DeSoto County. And so we're trying to find creative solutions on how do we staff our roadside help.
Kind of having to rob Peter to pay Paul.
We're definitely robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's something that's not ending anytime soon. Like I said, we're going to try to get more creative and find better solutions and find a way to get the pay up to compete. I mean, we'll never catch up, because if we catch up, they'll raise theirs.
Sure.
I mean, that's a private industry nature of the beast, and they're going to always be able to trump us to some degree, but they can't trump us $6 an hour's worth. We got to be able to close that gap.
Competitive, right? Yeah.
Well, thanks for the insight, Will. Let's finish it up with our favorite question here.
The big one, the money question here. So, as you've alluded to multiple times, you spend a lot of time on the roads. You got to eat, and we like to eat. We like to eat around here. Is there a favorite spot maybe somewhere, or a hole in the wall that?
That's not fair, because some places are better for Mexican food, and some are better for meat and three, and some are better for a big greasy hamburger. So I have a hard time picking a favorite.
Okay.
But the diners up and down the highway I like to stop at, as opposed to, I spend enough time at the fast food joints as it is. But anytime I get a chance to stop at
good old mom and pop.
Sparks, drive-in, in Tishomingo County or something like that. That's always good to be able to stop and get that home cooking and get a little, even more than the food, the personalities there
Yeah,
that
fellowship,
kind of
yeah.
adds to the equation. But it's all over.
Sure.
You just got to look, and so I know you want the place to go, but
That's
the
okay.
thing to do is to go out 3 or 4 days a week like we do, and just keep going and keep stopping, and you end up putting on the weight. But it's a good process, and definitely, people like to conjugate where the food is.
Yep.
And so where the people are is where we like to go and kind of make the connection and find out what the troubles are. And sometimes that little old lady at the diner knows more about the road troubles than we do. So,
Sometimes you get torn into for some of them.
we
Yeah,
just got to be
absolutely.
able to listen and make adjustments.
Oh yeah. What about what's the go-to fast food? If you got to have a quick bite, you got all the options out there.
Go-to fast food for me is just going to be the old-fashioned hamburger.
Good old McD's, Wendy's, something like that.
Yeah, maybe Jack's.
Okay.
I'll give Jack's a prop a little
I
bit.
don't know that I've ever had a burger from Jack's.
It's old Jack in the Box.
Put it
they
on the
changed
list.
Yeah.
There you go.
We got plenty of places to stop.
And they always got a milkshake to go with it. So
Ooh,
that's
that got me there. Yep.
But yeah, I've got to ration my milkshakes.
It's tough.
But
I could eat ice cream every day.
It's hard not to stop when you go through Walnut to stop and get a milkshake somewhere, and there's a few
I
places there.
empathize
Absolutely.
very much.
Well, we'll put that all on the list. And, we're biased, but Mississippi has the best food in the world, and there's nothing better than mom and pop in small town Mississippi. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Commissioner Caldwell, we really appreciate we know you're a busy guy. We really appreciate you making time for us.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate what y'all do to help, keep the conversation alive, and I think that's an important part of what we do.
We do appreciate it. So we do want to thank all of our listeners out there for tuning into the Extra Mile podcast. Remember, you can watch and listen to episodes by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile. We want to thank our editor, Drew Hall, and our producer, Katie Hornsby. They do a lot behind the scenes for us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, social media. The handle is @MississippiDOT. Remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.